Education is often seen as the backbone of civilization, yet for centuries it has been shaped by economic demands, political ideologies, and cultural traditions rather than by the true needs of human beings. To imagine the ideal education, we must first unshackle ourselves from the systems we inherited. Instead of memorization, fear of exams, and rigid hierarchies, we would cultivate curiosity, empathy, and critical thinking. Imagine walking into a school where children are not sitting in rows of desks but moving through interactive spaces, gardens for biology, kitchens for chemistry, digital studios for coding and art. Education would no longer be about stuffing information into young minds but about opening pathways of exploration. The foundation of this system is the recognition that every child is unique. Some excel in abstract reasoning, others in practical problem solving, others in creativity or interpersonal skills. The ideal education system adapts to each learner rather than forcing conformity. Personalized learning powered by artificial intelligence could provide feedback tailored to individual strengths and weaknesses. Instead of labeling a child as bad at math, the system would adjust pace, present concepts differently, and encourage persistence until understanding is achieved. Another cornerstone would be emotional education. For too long, schools have ignored the inner life of students, leaving them unprepared for relationships, resilience, and self-awareness. In the ideal system, mindfulness, emotional regulation, and empathy are taught as core subjects, just as important as mathematics or language. Children would graduate not only knowing how to solve equations but also how to resolve conflicts peacefully, manage stress, and collaborate effectively. The environment itself matters. Schools of the future would resemble community centers, welcoming, sustainable, and interconnected with nature. Classrooms open to gardens, libraries that feel like sanctuaries, and workshops buzzing with invention. The ideal education system is not a factory producing workers. It is a living ecosystem cultivating whole human beings. Technology in the ideal education system is neither idolized nor demonized. It serves as a tool, not a master. Imagine classrooms equipped with immersive virtual reality systems where history is not read but experienced. Students walk through ancient Athens, attend debates in the Roman Senate, or witness the building of the Great Wall. Science lessons unfold through simulations that allow students to alter variables in real time, watching ecosystems thrive or collapse based on their choices. This is not about flashy entertainment but about deep experiential learning. Artificial intelligence tutors could assist every child individually, ensuring no one is left behind. Yet technology cannot replace human teachers. In the ideal model, teachers are mentors, guides, and co-learners. Their role shifts from authority figures delivering lectures to facilitators nurturing exploration. They are trained not just in subject matter but in psychology, emotional intelligence, and ethics. Teachers become role models of lifelong learning, showing students that education never ends. In this system, assessment changes radically. Standardized testing, often a measure of obedience and memorization, becomes obsolete. Instead, evaluation focuses on projects, portfolios, and demonstrations of applied knowledge. A student's grade might be a community garden they designed, a piece of software they coded to solve a real problem, or a collaborative play performed with peers. Such assessments capture creativity, critical thinking, and cooperation in ways multiple-choice exams never could. Furthermore, the walls of schools dissolve. Education extends into communities and online networks. Apprenticeships with local artisans, internships in green technology firms, collaborations with scientists worldwide, all become part of a student's journey. Learning is lifelong, fluid, and contextual. The boundary between school and life vanishes, replaced by a continuum of exploration and growth. The ideal education is not bound by national borders. In a world increasingly interconnected, knowledge must be shared, and cultural understanding must be cultivated deliberately. In this vision, students in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas collaborate on shared projects, designing sustainable cities, addressing climate change, or exploring new frontiers of space. Virtual classrooms allow a child in Kenya to debate philosophy with a child in Canada, while AI translation tools dissolve language barriers. This creates not only intellectual enrichment but also deep empathy. Students grow up seeing humanity as one family, not as fragmented nations in competition. Such an approach transforms history education as well. Instead of glorifying wars and national achievements, history becomes a shared story of humanity, the struggles, inventions, mistakes, and triumphs that shaped us all. Students are encouraged to think critically about colonialism, inequality, and exploitation while envisioning fairer futures. Literature classes expand beyond Western canons to include voices from every culture, ensuring diverse perspectives enrich young minds. The consequences of this global outlook are profound. Prejudices diminish when young people have real friends across continents. The idea of the other collapses as empathy and cooperation replace fear and rivalry. In such a system, nationalism gives way to cosmopolitanism, preparing students to tackle global challenges collectively. Even competition is reimagined. Instead of destructive rivalries, healthy challenges promote collaboration. Schools host global science fairs, art exchanges, and innovation marathons where the goal is not victory but shared progress. Students learn that humanity rises higher together than it ever could divided. The ideal education does not end with graduation. In this system, adults continue learning throughout their lives. Universities evolve into open knowledge hubs where people of any age can study without financial barriers. Governments and communities support lifelong learning as a right, not a privilege. Online platforms offer free access to world-class education, while local centers provide hands-on training in new technologies, crafts, and arts. This shift transforms the economy. Instead of a workforce trained for obsolete jobs, society nurtures adaptability. When industries change, workers seamlessly retrain. When new scientific discoveries emerge, citizens understand them. This reduces unemployment, fear of automation, and inequality. Knowledge becomes a shared resource, as essential as water or air. The social fabric strengthens. Citizens educated in empathy, critical thinking, and ethics are less prone to manipulation and extremism. Democracy flourishes when people understand complex issues, evaluate evidence, and engage in civil discourse. Education becomes the greatest safeguard against tyranny, corruption, and ignorance. Finally, imagine the ripple effects on health, environment, and culture. Educated citizens demand sustainable practices, support scientific research, and cherish the arts. They design greener cities, cure diseases, and create cultural masterpieces. In the ideal education system, humanity's potential is unlocked, not for the benefit of a few but for all. This is the vision. A world where every child and every adult can learn, grow, and contribute without barriers. It is not a dream of tomorrow but a blueprint we can begin building today, piece by piece, decision by decision. The ideal education is not a fantasy, it is the most practical foundation for a flourishing civilization. Modern neuroscience has revealed that the human brain is not a fixed container but a dynamic, ever-changing network. The ideal education system would integrate this knowledge into daily practice. Teachers would understand concepts like neuroplasticity, critical periods of development, and the effects of stress on cognition. Instead of punishing mistakes, schools would treat them as essential signals for growth. Students would learn how memory works, how sleep consolidates learning, and how exercise fuels the brain with oxygen and neurotransmitters. In such a system, lessons are designed around attention spans, with cycles of focus and rest, reflection and application. The implications are profound. Imagine students learning mindfulness not as a spiritual curiosity but as a scientifically supported method to regulate attention and reduce anxiety. Picture classrooms where children are encouraged to take short movement breaks because educators know that physical activity boosts hippocampal function. Nutrition, too, becomes part of education. Schools provide balanced meals, and students understand how diet influences cognition. This neuroscience-based approach empowers learners not only to acquire knowledge but also to master the process of learning itself. They graduate with metacognition, the awareness of how they think, remember, and create. While traditional schooling often sidelines the arts as extras, the ideal education system places creativity at the center. Music, visual arts, dance, and theater are not luxuries but essentials for developing imagination, empathy, and problem-solving skills. Neuroscientists confirm that playing an instrument enhances spatial reasoning, and painting stimulates regions of the brain associated with innovation. But beyond brain scans, the arts provide meaning. They allow students to process emotions, to explore identity, and to envision futures that do not yet exist. In this system, every child is an artist, not in the sense that all will pursue art professionally but in the sense that creativity becomes a natural mode of expression. Science and art are not divided but blended. Students might learn geometry through architecture projects, chemistry through pottery, or history through dramatic reenactments. By engaging both hemispheres of the brain, such integrated learning produces balanced thinkers who can analyze and imagine simultaneously. This is crucial in a world facing unprecedented challenges, where innovative solutions demand both logic and creativity. Education without ethics risks producing intelligent but dangerous minds. The ideal system addresses this by embedding philosophy and ethics into every stage of learning. Children begin with simple lessons in fairness, kindness, and honesty, gradually advancing to debates about justice, free will, and responsibility. By the time they reach adulthood, they have wrestled with moral dilemmas, not memorized dogmas. This cultivation of ethical reasoning prepares citizens to face the complexities of the modern world. Biotechnology, artificial intelligence, environmental stewardship, and global inequality. Students are encouraged to ask not just, "Can we?" but, "Should we?" Such reflection creates a culture where innovation is guided by responsibility. Imagine a generation of engineers who design algorithms while deeply considering fairness, or doctors who treat patients with empathy as well as skill. Ethics in education ensures that progress serves humanity rather than harms it. The survival of our species depends on our relationship with the planet. The ideal education system makes ecological literacy as fundamental as reading or math. From an early age, children learn where food comes from, how ecosystems function, and why biodiversity matters. They plant gardens, monitor local air and water quality, and design projects to reduce waste. Instead of abstract lectures on climate change, students experience firsthand the interdependence of life. Outdoor learning becomes standard. Forest schools, beach schools, and desert classrooms connect children with their specific environments. Students in coastal towns study marine biology by observing tide pools. Those in arid regions explore water conservation through hands-on experiments. Technology amplifies this learning. Satellites, sensors, and simulations help students see global patterns of deforestation, pollution, and climate shifts. By the time they graduate, they are not only aware of environmental crises but also equipped with the knowledge and skills to solve them. Humanity's horizons extend beyond Earth, and education must reflect this. The ideal system prepares students for futures on our planet and beyond. Astronomy is taught not just as distant theory but as preparation for space exploration. Robotics, aerospace engineering, and astrobiology become accessible subjects. Students simulate building colonies on Mars, learning the physics of life support systems and the ethics of interplanetary settlement. But this is not science fiction, it is an exercise in problem solving. By imagining life in hostile environments, students better understand the fragility of Earth's biosphere. They learn that the technologies required for survival in space, closed-loop ecosystems, renewable energy, efficient recycling, are the same technologies needed to sustain life on Earth. Education in this context inspires wonder while grounding responsibility. It tells students, the future is vast, but it depends on the choices you make today. Technology is neither savior nor villain. It is a tool shaped by human intention. In the ideal education system, students learn to master technology rather than be mastered by it. Coding becomes as fundamental as literacy, but so does digital ethics. Children explore how algorithms influence perception, how social media shapes behavior, and how data is collected and used. Instead of passively consuming, they become creators, building apps, designing games, and programming robots. Artificial intelligence is taught not as a distant mystery but as a present reality. Students experiment with AI models, learning their strengths and limitations. They explore questions of bias, transparency, and accountability. By integrating technology into all subjects, using VR to step inside historical events, AR to visualize anatomy, or simulations to test engineering designs, education empowers learners to use digital tools creatively and critically. They graduate not as dependent users but as conscious architects of the digital world. In an interconnected world, education cannot remain confined to national borders. The ideal system cultivates global citizenship, teaching languages, histories, and cultures beyond one's own. Exchange programs and virtual classrooms connect students from different continents, allowing them to collaborate on real-world challenges, water scarcity, health crises, peace-building. Through these experiences, young people learn empathy across differences, the ability to listen, and the skill of negotiating cultural perspectives. Intercultural fluency becomes as valuable as technical skill. A student from Asia may co-develop a project with peers in Africa and Europe, learning how different traditions approach the same problem. This global dialogue prevents the rise of narrow nationalism and prepares future leaders who see humanity as one species sharing one planet. The lesson is not that cultures must dissolve into sameness, but that diversity itself is strength. Traditional schooling is confined to classrooms and rigid schedules. The ideal system dismantles these limitations. Learning becomes continuous, fluid, and personalized. Schools may remain physical centers, but they transform into hubs of community engagement, laboratories of innovation, and sanctuaries of growth. Time is restructured. Instead of uniform 45-minute periods, students engage in deep work sessions, project sprints, reflective breaks, and community service. Space also changes. Learning happens everywhere. At home, in libraries, online, outdoors, in workplaces, and across borders. The physical school becomes less a prison of desks and more a launchpad for exploration. Walls are filled with interactive displays, workshops buzz with activity, gardens and labs extend into the community. Education is not something that ends at 3 p.m. or at age 18. It becomes a lifelong process, woven into the fabric of everyday living. In this vision, teachers are no longer mere deliverers of information but guides, mentors, and co-learners. They cultivate curiosity, support emotional well-being, and model the habits of lifelong learners. Instead of grading endless papers, they provide feedback that nurtures growth. Technology assists by automating routine assessments, freeing teachers to focus on what machines cannot: empathy, encouragement, and human connection. Teacher training is transformed. Educators continuously update their knowledge of pedagogy, neuroscience, ethics, and technology. They work in teams, collaborate across disciplines, and engage with the broader community. They are not isolated but supported, valued as one of society's most important professions. Just as doctors save lives, teachers shape them. Students are not empty vessels but co-authors of their education. The ideal system treats them as active participants, giving them choices in what, how, and why they learn. A child passionate about marine biology can design a project around coral reefs, integrating science, art, and policy. A teenager drawn to storytelling can merge history with multimedia production. Assessments shift from standardized tests to portfolios of real work, films, experiments, prototypes, essays, performances that demonstrate understanding in authentic contexts. By empowering agency, education produces not compliance but initiative. Students learn, how to question, how to build. They graduate not with memorized facts but with the confidence and capacity to adapt in a changing world. The mind cannot flourish if the body and emotions are neglected. The ideal system integrates health into education at every level. Students practice mindfulness, engage in daily physical activity, and learn the science of sleep and nutrition. Mental health is destigmatized. Counseling and peer support programs are as normal as math class. Instead of pushing students into burnout, schools teach balance: how to manage stress, how to disconnect from screens, how to cultivate joy. Arts, play, and rest are not distractions but essentials. By modeling healthy living, schools prepare students to thrive not only intellectually but holistically. The message is clear. Success is not measured only by grades or income but by well-being, resilience, and fulfillment. Education cannot be divorced from the realities of work, but it also cannot be reduced to job training. The ideal system balances both. Students learn practical skills, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, collaboration, communication, while also reflecting on deeper questions. What does meaningful work look like? How can I contribute to society? What is the role of money, power, and purpose in life? Apprenticeships, internships, and community projects give students real-world experience, but without exploiting them. Work becomes part of learning, and learning becomes part of work. The boundary between school and society dissolves, producing graduates who are ready not just for employment but for meaningful contribution. An ideal education system cannot exist if it excludes or marginalizes. Equity is not charity but necessity. Every student, regardless of background, ability, or identity, receives the support they need to thrive. Barriers of poverty, disability, and discrimination are actively dismantled. Schools provide meals, healthcare, safe spaces, and adaptive technologies. Inclusion means more than access, it means representation. Curricula reflect diverse voices, histories, and perspectives. Students see themselves in what they study, and they see others with respect and curiosity. Justice in education creates justice in society. A child who learns that every voice matters will grow into an adult who acts on that belief. For education to evolve, governance itself must change. Policies must be guided not by political cycles but by long-term visions. Communities, educators, students, and scientists all contribute to decision-making. Funding prioritizes schools as investments, not expenses. Bureaucracy shrinks. Transparency expands. Education becomes a collaborative endeavor, owned by society as a whole. It is recognized as the foundation upon which health, economy, democracy, and environment rest. To neglect education is to neglect the future. In the final picture, education is no longer a phase of childhood but the fabric of human life. From early childhood to old age, people continue to grow, learn, and adapt. Universities open their doors to retirees. Workplaces become centers of continuous education. Online platforms connect learners across generations and continents. Curiosity becomes the common thread of humanity. In this vision, no one says, "I am finished learning." Instead, every stage of life is an opportunity to expand, to transform, to share. The elderly teach the young wisdom, the young teach the elderly technology. The cycle of learning becomes the cycle of community, the cycle of humanity. The ideal education system is not a fantasy but a possibility. It is built on neuroscience and creativity, on ethics and environment, on technology and humanity. It values teachers and empowers students. It integrates health, work, justice, and global citizenship. It prepares us for Earth and for the stars. Above all, it restores the original meaning of education: to lead forth, to draw out, to awaken. Not to cram minds with data but to cultivate wisdom. Not to enforce obedience but to inspire responsibility. Not to prepare for exams but to prepare for life. If humanity dares to build such a system, the future will not simply arrive, it will be shaped, crafted, and chosen by generations of learners who know both who they are and who they can become.